did my design, planting crops along the river. So what I did was I just drew some example crops. So ones that are further away from the river would be planted like drier soil, like tomatoes, strawberries, peppers, and then not this one, but closer towards would be crops that like more moist soil, like spinach, asparagus, grapes, and cranberry. And then also they would all, depending on what soil they were investing in, they would all have their plots. And then when it rains, of course, the rivers can flood. So I drew side oats around things like that. Around the crops to keep from soil erosion and to stop from flooding. And then on the other side here, I have my arborings, different trees. I drew a banana tree, orange, apple, peach, and then honey locust glass. And then as the crops ripen, just come through and just collect it, and then they'll just start again. And whenever wildlife would eat it, it gets some food too. So that's basically my idea. You might have any questions for it?
Where is this space? This is like your imaginary dream, a dream world, and water was like geographically or like imagining a space with water.
Yeah, so it would just be like the water.
Is it up high? Does it flow down?
So it would just be, I just had it as just flowing across, but like the soil underneath of it would be moist closer to it, and then further away it would be drier.
What's the topography like?
The topography? I didn't think about that. Yeah, that was just the plan. It's fine, like this would be like a subsection. It's just like an example.
And is this something that you think that you, with anything that you're either currently doing or something that you want to do in the future where you could apply this?
Something I want to do in the future. Not right now. But this is definitely something that I would try out to see if I can get crops to grow. Unusual places.
Yeah. What types of things did this project give you, like as an awareness, that you may not have had coming into it, that you kind of had to think through?
Just like which crops need drier, moist soil. Doing something for soil erosion so that it doesn't lose the nutrients or get like over flooded when it rains and all the plants drown out. So that would take some work too. I was thinking maybe like kind of, I don't know, risers maybe.
And that becomes important, you know, the story that I mentioned to you all when I had my landscape design business. And one of the reasons why I eventually kind of let it go is people have these pre-described thoughts about what they want their landscapes to look like. Because a lot of times they're thinking about the aesthetics as opposed to whether or not it's in alignment with the space that they're in, you know, how it aligns with nature and things like that. So I think that, you know, when we are looking at these things relative to permaculture, it encourages us to think about, okay, nature kind of knows a little bit more than we might know, right? And giving some reverence to that, right? And how can we work in concert with it as opposed to being the ultimate conqueror? And oftentimes, one of the biggest challenges that people have when they're saying, no, I can't grow this, you know, or I put this plant in and it's dying. Well, they're putting it in from the standpoint they like that plant, right? And they want that plant, and they want to be planting this plant on their property as opposed to, you know, are they trying to plant a plant that doesn't like its feet wet in a wetland area? It's not, it has nothing to do with the person's green thumb as much as it has to do with the land is a certain way. Now, maybe you would need to amend the space a little bit, do some earthworking if you wanted to have certain plants that it wasn't as most desirable for their feet to be wet. But it's just, we're kind of reversing it, you know. I think sometime back in ancient times when the idea that human beings had dominion over Earth was interpreted by human beings that they were in charge of the Earth, right? And really, I think what that terminology was trying to suggest is more like from a governance, caretaking, take care of the Earth, as opposed to being the ones who were in charge of the Earth, right? And so we've taken all that standpoint, so everything that we do falls in line with this, oh, well, you know, I like this, I want it, and therefore it shall be, you know, with any regard to anything else. So, yeah, that'll having the awareness now to, like, really think about it. And I think you did a really good job in highlighting those things. So, anybody else have any questions or comments?
Do you have any kind of what to do with your foods?
The foods?
The foods.
Oh, that's right. Eat and sell it.
What was the answer?
Eat it and sell it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever's left over. Because this is just like, I just do like one big plant, and I'm thinking of like lots, just.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so always kind of thinking about that. How can the cycle continue to feed into that regenerative component, right?
Right.
We're in a world that still has a capitalistic base. We're trying to painstakingly detach ourselves away from that. But we kind of have to balance the two, right? So if we can, you know, my center now is just starting to turn the corner where after all this time of 11 years, we have the infrastructure things in place where it can start to generate some type of revenue from what's going on here. But it has to be done in the way that's aligned with the rest of the center. You know, like I'm not going to go out and try to offer my honey to somebody that says I need 25 bottles or more per month, because that doesn't fall into my sustainability model, right? So how can we work in concert with nature? Already gives us what we need. How can we work in concert with nature so it keeps replenishing the pot and it's not going one way either way? Okay, so let's give.
Hi everyone, I'm Brit. I titled my project Community Compost Networks, Decomposing Barriers Through Placemaking, kind of taking the notion of the permaculture design principles and kind of paralleling them with the idea of society, the idea of building community. When you're building, I guess, a forest or an urban or a food forest or some sort of landscape, you are trying to think, the principles are similar to those of building community. So I think in order to kind of share how I got to my project, I have to kind of explain where it came from and the places and spaces that I work in, particularly this space that's in the background here. And I kind of want to give y'all an idea of the community, the need for my project, and yeah. Kind of a way just to sound. I like to start off a little bit with what the idea, which is something that we all kind of, it's like duh, we kind of do this naturally. We create places and spaces that can thrive for folks of all abilities, right? But what it isn't, I think are kind of ideas that I like to focus on. And we're all, I think that the goal of all of this, whether you're designing a space, you're feeding people, you're creating a home, whatever you're doing, I think that we're all trying to get closer to equity. And so I think that these are good notions for beyond just placemaking, for maybe just ways of doing in general. So it's not top down, it's not reactionary, and I think that these are similar to the permaculture design principles. It's not exclusionary, it's not one, nothing is, responses are not one size fits all, which we talk a lot about. Maybe that the notion of an invasive species, right? Maybe something, it doesn't work there, but maybe it will work somewhere else. Maybe we can rework it. And I need to list them all, and then obviously what placemaking is. But I think that we're all fairly more advanced. And just a little bit, I'm going to show this video because I think it does a much better job than I could ever do of showing the material conditions, the sociological, and like kind of economic constructs around the west side of Wilmington, and kind of city proper in general, underserved, underprivileged community, environmental justice, and on the block of the space where I kind of have my site design, there are a few other revitalized vacant lots, community gardens, all within eyeshot of each other, about half a block. It's called Delamore Place is the street. Delamore Place Community Garden is a space I'm going to be focused on. And the video I'm showing you is within eyeshot. It's called The Village Tree, and Miss Cecilia Rich created it. And then also within that block is a mini learning orchard that all of us have worked together in the community to create these three spaces. So within one block on the west side of Wilmington, there is an exuberant amount of green space where the material conditions were left, the industrial legacy and inequitable housing regulations have really left this part of the city, in underprivileged and underserved.
Where we are in Wilmington, Delaware, almost the entire city is classified as a food
We have roughly 21% poverty rate and food insecurity rate in Sussex County at about 12.3%.
Places where you can go to buy fresh foods do not exist, or they're not as plentiful as they should be. Instead, we just have a host of fast food places.
It's a couple of factors: being able to afford food straight up, and it's also being able to actually find those good foods with what money you do have.
The Village Street Garden is a garden that grows more than just flowers. My master's thesis was about social sustainability and living in an urban community and giving people other options and identifying food insecurity. And when I started realizing the number of dialysis and urgent care clinics popping up, Houston, there's a problem. The garden is basically the hook. My passion is giving people other options. And it's not just eating food, it's getting resources, it's getting information that they need, that they do in order for them to excel.
The Village Tree continuously makes all sorts of different impacts. It has become this center for food access. So not only what is being grown in there and distributed, but also becomes a point where they can expect food-based programming.
We feed the community at least once a month. Free food, gates open, come on and get what you need.
Walton University has made some significant contributions and investments to this project. One of the really important qualities about this project is that it is about the empowerment of the community. We're teaching, we're collaborating, we're allowing the creation of a community asset that is reflective of community interests and needs and talents. And so I think those are the best possible kinds of investments we can make in our community.
As a Walton University, I thank them so much.
We're painting 3 trees. A bunch of kids are going to come and apply their hands, which will represent leaves for the trees
and to put their energy onto that mural and planting the seed and to come back and say, look, Mom, this is where I plant that seed.
Our hope is to connect with the children in the garden, to introduce them to ideas that they might not be familiar with, foods that maybe they haven't eaten. The kids take that information back home to their families, to their neighbors, and it just reinforces healthy eating habits and introduces folks to foods that maybe they weren't as familiar with and how to prepare them. So it really does start with the kids.
When kids grow tomatoes, they eat tomatoes. When kids grow lettuce, they eat lettuce.
The village tree is an important aspect of the community. I believe that she is touching the people on a cultural level. A lot of these children aren't exposed to things that are outside of their immediate zip code. It is critical in the development of communities like this.
What the village tree is doing with this community garden is absolutely a beacon of bright light. It invites people to gather, invites people to sustain themselves in healthy ways, and just an incredibly positive force for good.
I'm Cecilia Rich, and I'm using my Walton education for good.
Clearly a plug for,
The unserved.
I'm glad they funded this amazing video.
By being an advocate for those that need advocate.
Thanks for watching that. I will mention Cecilia Rich, the Village Tree. If any folks always looking for volunteers, I've spent many hours there. It's fabulous. So this is very important that Cecilia and the Village Tree get credit for anything I'm going to mention beyond this, because she created this model for, I want to say not the West Side, but particularly for this 4th Street corridor, we call it, and this Delaware Place. So working off of that, over the past 10 years or so, organizations have partnered together to purchase some vacant lots and create beyond this, right here at the top, this is Delaware Place Community Garden. And oh, how funny, this little dude on top, that's Messiah, who you heard his voice in that call earlier. So what we've done is create, this is gonna move forward, hopefully in a second. So similar spaces. So this is Jamie I don't think she's on the call. Sorry, Jamie, I'm always putting you out there and images. So she has really, this year, taken this space to a new level, revitalizing it, growing food, creating partnerships with local restaurants with growing crops for them, teaching youth. We combine art and music, and really kind of take the notions of permaculture, where you take this holistic approach, where there's a feedback loop between the earth and between the people, and it's kind of a safe, free space. And across the street is a learning orchard that's been planted. At the intersection, there's a church that has a food, that they're starting a food pantry. You can turn the music. The music isn't really necessary. And these are just kind of images just to give you an idea of what kind of permaculture, right, kind of means to us on the West Side. Our farmers, we work directly, these gardens also work directly with farmers markets. So clearly we have excess food, we have folks learning about growing, we have restaurants that need food, we have green spaces and people that need soil. So we decided to, as part of our program, work a lot of education around multiple categories, rain gardens, so irrigation systems, and also composting became a really big, a lot of talk and a lot of, it became really trendy, I think, in these past couple of years. And there was a space at this garden years ago where folks set up bins, for the idea of composting, but it was never done correctly. And so we decided we were going to kind of tackle it, dismantle it, move it, and then start. This is all within the context of trying to create a community compost site. And I think that was inspired by this course, between Jamie having the permaculture certification and now me taking it. I think that I don't know if we would have had that lens to even then take this to the community, at the community level, and how can we put it into a program, and how can we then share it out with the world. So given that we have this cluster of these spaces right within this block, it makes sense for this site to maybe be a central site for a compost place where folks can come in, feed it, and then take what they need at the same time. Distribution is tough when it comes to compost, and I know when you need a lot, you need it delivered, but sometimes it can be as simple as like, I have a few plants and I just need some healthy soil so I can put them, outside of my porch. This was my sketch, I just did a rough sketch zoning out that garden and kind of imagining where the compost was, where I could move it. And you'll see, so this was kind of phase 1. Phase 2 there are images later that show you they're kind of in the works. And then it shows you across this site, which is kind of adjacent, I guess is that the word? The learning orchard, so then you can take your buckets and go across the orchard or back and forth so all these resources can be shared. Because that will need dirt, and we were trying to respond to a need and how we can move things around. So this shows you what kind of the site of how the compost was. It was growing tomatoes. The compost was really good at growing vegetables, which is not what it's supposed to do. It was also, these spaces are, whether they're supported or not, has a lot to do with who they are situated next to, what neighbors are across the street right next to it, a block away. This one happens to be between some amazing urban farmers who have been planting and gardening across the street in their space for many, many years, and have never really had an opportunity to really utilize this space. There were fences, there was some danger, there were lots of reasons, but it was right next to their home. So our first goal was to kind of clean it up, make it safe, and a space that they wanted to use. And once we did that, it beautified it, then they finally came out. We had conversations. The owner's name is Felix, and he said, the compost bin, it puts ants it's next to their shed. It's like, for years we've had ants. Is there anything you can do? So that was the third impetus for moving it. Because when you do work like this, and you're trying to grow food and you're trying to permaculture, when you're trying to perma, you also have to realize that you're affecting people, right? And safely, and everybody is involved, and everybody has just as much clout, right? And so a big thing is moving the compost for Felix and his family. Gives you an idea of what we were working with. Slowly but surely, we started pulling it, and there's mulberry we need to talk about, and we cannot get out of there. And then this is me. I did it. I just think it's funny that there's just kind of trying to show proof. Okay, and these are just there's a local best friends that we love each other in the garden there. And so this really, because I feel like Felicia would hate me if I leave this picture out, but I have to. They live on this block. I met them years ago, Felicia, and then that's her daughter Nene, and Nene has now, Jamie's on the call, I'm not sure, but she has a green thumb, but she went from I don't know if y'all work with kids in watering and how they tend to puddle and pool, and there's nothing they really want to water gardens, but she's now our trusted water. And the cool thing, we have these youth ambassadors, and they're allowed access to all the sites. So she also will help out at the village tree or at the orchard, and she just can walk out of her door, and this block is now kind of safe for her to walk around and be a part of this. Which just kind of led to what the future above the compost site will be. We're really excited to be able to install this learning sign that the kids design. So this is I'm excited for when that compost area is moved. This will be the end of the project.
Hold that up so I can get zooming.
We're not ready yet, and thanks to this certification, I think Delmore's gonna have a nice compost, and hopefully in the future, folks will be able to participate, come and get what they need. Westside Grows is the organization that runs this space. At the corner is their office. I'm now forcing them to put their scraps in a bucket and carry it across the street to the compost. So we're at all levels trying to educate folks and change things. But and that was a big mumble-jumbled mess. But I just wanted to share some of this stuff with y'all before we never see each other again. You'll see each other. I mean, or not, I mean, I wanted to if I have an opportunity to show these communities and how they can be, and that anything that you build in the suburbs or anything that you build here, we can build there and we'll thrive. And I dare you to tell me it won't. Because those are usually the obstacles that we come to, that they'll break it, they'll ruin it, they don't want it, they don't deserve it. So fancy spaces get to exist everywhere for everyone. So and that's I think our goal, and they should lead to feeding people too, which is Cecilia's mission. That sometimes it even gets to the point where she says, I don't grow flowers, I grow food. Like she gets angry at flowers and which is another thing, but I get it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have a fancy title or a clever title. It's just I decided to work on a property that my ex-husband now lives on. We moved there about 20 years ago. I've moved away since, but he still lives there with their kids who go back and forth. This is my drawing. It is in this little presentation here, so hopefully it will be bigger on screen, but I can also pass it around if you'd like.
Watercolor?
Yeah, it was watercolor.
That's very cool. I noticed that right away.
I wanted to, I don't think you can see this. In a lot of the workshops I've been to lately, you know, there's a land acknowledgement, and I wanted to give land acknowledgement that this property it's in northeast of Wilmington. It's actually a property right down here, but it is on Lenape land, and I'd like to learn more about how Lenape used the land, you know, in history, and how they use it now. And that's one of the trips I'd like to go on, is down to Millsboro to visit, because this land, this picture just features like this Lenape nation, but I think they go further into Delaware too. So, but you get the idea, you know, of what I'm trying to accomplish here. And I also wanted to, after, you know, hearing about what you all learned last week, I wanted to recognize also that the land is part of the Delaware River watershed, which I thought was pretty cool because it's a lot of the same land. You know, the Lenape lived in the Delaware River watershed. And I think that's really important considering everything that's happening and been happening along the Delaware River corridor these past few years. And so I also wanted to give a nod to the plant hardiness zone, because I'm talking about up here in this little blurb, little spot up here. Although the hardiness has recently changed, but that's okay. Oops. Of course, I included links because I'm a librarian. So this is a little cutout because, so the Pennsylvania, Delaware borders up here, the Delaware River's over here kind of, we're just about 3 miles away. And this is the property. It's not Darling Woods is across the street. And this is what it looks like with the trees. You can see it's very residential, very wooded area that I'm talking about here. And this is zoomed in even more on the house. I'm pointing to the computer screen, but you can see them now. So this is, you know, the basic property size, which is hard to tell from this picture, but this is what it looks like with all the trees. And it's all very mature trees, which I want to talk about because I do have a lot of concern for the canopy layer of trees and want to definitely try to help contribute and preserve that layer. And on the drawing, the trees that are there and labeled are existing. So they're not trees that I'm going to add, they're trees that are there. So it might say oak, it might say maple, it might say Japanese maple. Those are what's there now. And there might be only 1 or 2 that I propose taking down, and it's none of those. But they are coming down because they're very mature and some of them are in decline, which will impact how the property, how the plants and things will grow. And I made a video last spring. I walked through, and hopefully it will play for us. It's very short.
Is the sound going for it? Yes.
I don't know if they'll be able to hear it.
Oh yeah, we did.
Urban home that I learned Kansas Toure design and care of her. And let's start with this little area here.
This is the center garden. It used to be a magnificent southern magnolia, but when we moved in, we took it out and replaced it with this crepe myrtle. So
I like how you said it used to be a magnificent.
beautiful magnolia. And leave this into a sun-air vegetable garden here. It'll be circular. I'm just showing you different areas. There's the front door. There's a beautiful oak tree. It's very mature. There's several mature oak trees on this property. And I want to take into account the fact that they may be in decline. There's some maple trees.
Very different.
And over here, we have this really beautiful Japanese maple. It's gorgeous now, it's gorgeous in the spring, it's gorgeous in the summer, it's gorgeous in the fall.
It's invasive.
And I'd like to put a pond in this area and develop it further. And then over here along the street, it gets a good amount of sun. I'm thinking of, this is where the fruit trees, fruit nuts that are sun-loving, fruit nuts, the nut trees, and bushes and shrubs and things would go along this strip here. So then we're going to turn around. And we have this midsection here, which does not get a lot of sun. But it's not complete shade. There used to be 2 scarlet oaks and 1 shagbark hickory that lived right here, but they have since declined and fallen over. So they're no longer here. And what's here is, I don't even know. But, I mean, we see the hollies back there, they would stay, but this whole clump would be part of what is to be developed up through this strip here. And I'm thinking like more shrubs, bushes, blueberries, greenberries, nutberries, raspberries, things like that. And we have this maple tree here. And as we head back this way, we have this whole area here, which I think is prime for trees. There used to be a tree right here, but that came down because of an old age decline for trees. And what I'm thinking is I want to add more trees here, oaks, persimmon, hickories, more Kamahele trees, make this into more of a woodsy area back here. Of course, it will take many years to become woodsy back here, but I can plan. There is buried beneath this Virginia creeper and miscellany, a fire pit. I'm going to bring back the fire pit.
Fire pit has since gone out. It's not in my current plan.
Elsewhere. But bring back the fire pit, get rid of this little broken cherry tree that's found its way into the fire pit. And back here, it gets very moist back here. If you go back there and it's after a rain or anywhere near a rain, the mosquitoes seriously attack you. So I want to keep that in mind. It's not sitting water, but it is very moist back there. A lot of Virginia creeper, a lot of ferns. There used to be a lot of jewelweed back there, but my ex had it all removed. Some hollies that we put back there to block the lights. And I'm not married to this redbud. It's also a rogue redbud. We have other redbuds on the property. So you can see what else is growing here. We have another beautiful oak, spruce of some kind, some other things. There is a wild cherry here that would probably stay, even though it doesn't produce any fruit. It's still very beautiful. And I guess there are other wild cherries. Maybe we'll get fruit this year, I don't know. But there's a whole bunch of possibility of what we can do here, knowing that the trees will take time to grow. And then there's this backyard here. It's very shady. You see the ferns growing. We've got this beautiful oak here, and some, oh look, there's a tulip tree back there. That's how wonderful. I think that's growing on this property. And these hollies. Hollies will get bigger. They were topped off It's a whole story. I'm not gonna go into it.
Were you thinking about us while you were doing this commentary?
Here, we used to sit out here and watch the birds and see the tokies and all kinds of things back here. So I'd really like to make this into a nice window to look through and bird watch, because the owner does love bird watching. It's very wonderful back here. And then we have patio, which he doesn't use. I don't
We'll get
know.
into that later.
Patio. It's a beautiful holly heater that would probably stay. What else is back here? And we have this oak, another very mature oak. And I don't know how many years longer it has, but the swing set. I would not be averse to, in my drawing, getting rid of the swing set, including the greenhouse here.
Yeah, the tree goes through it. It's
I'm not
built
sure
around
if it's an opportunity. There's a nice size shed here. Yeah, there's the shed.
Sure. Oh, there's a person. There's a person, my neighbor. They have a robot that mows the lawn. It's like a little Roomba, but for mowing.
And here we are.
Here we are at the front of the house again. So thank you for watching. That's a tour of what the garden looks like. Looked like in spring, but it's pretty much what it looks like now. The owner doesn't really, he just maintains it. He doesn't garden or really, he's interested in the plants that I'm drawing up, but he's, like I said, he's not a gardener.
Okay, so this
No, we're not watching that again. Let's go to the next slide. So now we're at the drawing that I passed around. And I'm gonna use my little mouse. So I tried to assign zones, but it's a small property, so I might not be exactly right in my zones. But my zone 0 is the house. And the house, the door entranceway is here, there's an exit here, and there's an exit here. So the kitchen is right in the center. So there's no easy access or direct access to the garden to like go grab some herbs or something like that. So the best place I could think that made most sense is to put the herbs and the annuals and some perennials and some loving plants that are shorter in this front property, because I also can't put anything tall there because the electric lines do run across this area. So the crepe myrtle just passes, but the crepe myrtle would come down because as beautiful as it is, it really doesn't contribute, but I want it to contribute to the property, to the ecosystem. And along the bottom here I would put some roses, so then I could enjoy the roses and the benefits of them. Let's see, so this would be zone 1 is marked. Zone 2 is back here. I do some earth working to kind of help manage the water flow so that it doesn't all collect down in this corner. But I'd also plan to accommodate, knowing that it's a very moist corner. It's a very slight hill that goes down this way. So here I plant, I'll get into that in a minute. And then zone 3, I changed my mind, would be this area here where there's an existing canopy, and I plant along the road here some fruit and nut trees like I mentioned in the video. Probably do some plantings back here as well. I'd love to put in a greenhouse, and I kept moving the greenhouse around the property, but right now I'm settled on it going back here. And then the patio, there'd still be a patio. This would turn into where we keep the wood pile and the compost, so this swing set would come down. We don't need it anymore, and I can make better use of that space. And like I said, the man who lives here, my ex-husband, loves bird watching, and so I know he really wants this to remain like a bird-centered area. So it's less for food consumption, for people consumption, more for the birds and the animals. And I don't want to forget, I really wanted to put in a pond because I know there are snakes, I know there are frogs around, some, little garter snakes. And I think that putting in a pond and those kinds of creatures would help, lower the mosquito swarming. I think it would just be beneficial all around. And this area would pretty much just stay the way it is. I'm not focused on this area here to the left.
The brown that you see are the paths that I envision, you know, that we're gonna wear through. It is still an oil-based house, so I need to make sure that, so there's a gate here, that the oil delivery men can deliver oil easily. You know, that, oops, that, I went too far, I'm cheating. That was important to me. So, let's see. Zone 1 was like that front herb garden, annual garden. I would put annuals like carrots, cabbage, squash, sunflowers, basil. I don't know what I'm going to put in there, but these are just examples. And some perennials, some herbs like yarrow, mint, sage, rosemary. It really depends on what's available to me and what wants to grow there. And these are just some designs that I was thinking about that I really wanted to be circular. Zone 2, which was in the back corner, I would put in the canopy trees, so put in some more oaks or hickories or something like that to contribute to the canopy. But also some elderberry, blackberry, blueberry, grapes, figs, hickory. Some things to fill in the area. Again, it depends on what's available because I'm not running out to Home Depot or Lowe's to get any of these items. You know, I want them to be quality items that I get from friends or good resources. So, you know, this is just an idea of what I want to grow in that area. This is the pond or the front orchard-ish area. Again, there's existing canopy, the fruit and nut trees, and I'm not sure what kind of, I really need to investigate more what kind of plants to put around a pond. I looked at some videos online and tried to find things, but I want things that are good for the animals and potentially good that we can also benefit from, we being the people, and that would be healthy for the pond as well. And then zone 4 was right behind the house. This is where the bird watching will happen. I tend to put in more plants there that humans could use, but it's really, you know, with the intention of attracting the birds to come and enjoy. Because I'm not keen on using bird feeders. I believe the garden is the bird feeder. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to restore that kind of woodsy feeling to that back area. And this, I believe, is my last slide. And I'd see how it, you know, how it develops over the years and what needs to be moved. You know, some plants might like it, some, I don't know, you never know where plants don't like it. You might know, but you might, you know, might say, no, I really want to be over there instead. And I'd be willing to work with the plants to figure out where they thrive. Mm-hmm. And I think that's all I wanted to say.
Oh, okay, so I like the idea of how you went into your existing space, and then I'm going to stop it so I can talk. How you went into your existing space and actually really enjoyed the tour, and the commentary was on point. I'm wondering while she's walking around doing her commentary, is she thinking about us at all, really, or is this just like, you know, her just talking superfluously? I can't use that word, but yeah, I enjoyed that, and I like how you then went back and incorporated it. The thing that you said at the very end about, you know, if the plant doesn't like it here, then we'll find out where it likes things better. You know, oftentimes people that they don't think they have the green thumb because the plant's not doing what they wanted to do where they put it. But it may need different conditions. So what have we been doing here that comes into play when something like that happens? It starts with an O. Yeah. Right? So we're maybe that too. But that, you know, that's something that we're always continuously doing that alongside of nature, right? We're being respected. That's that reciprocity. So what questions do you all have of Serena? I think that was great. Thank you for that again.
Theoretically, as like a 10-year, a 20, like I know you even had the wood set in there, so like a 50-year plan?
I mean, he every time I talk to him about the house, he thinks he's going to sell it. So I don't think that this is going to happen. But it would, I mean, certain things would get set up first, but I mean, to put in trees, that is a big time, not commitment, but you know, to be there, anticipating that the trees will take 20 years to mature, to become canopy level trees. So yes, this would be a 20+ year plan. But, you know, I'd like it to be, like, if I were to move and be able to do something like this, because I can't do this in my current property, but I would, you know, really commit to the land, kind of like someone commits to a pet, I commit to the land. This would be my land, my trees, and we work together. And one of the other things that I forgot to mention that I was thinking about is that one of my fears in gardening now, gardening for fruits and vegetables, is like what happens if I get like a plethora of peppers or tomatoes or whatever I'm growing. I get so much that I can't possibly eat it. And I have 2 kids, but they're not going to touch it because I grew it. There's no logic. They're teenagers. So what would I do with all the extra food? And I feel like I have a responsibility then to just not waste the food. Sure, you know, the animals and bugs and the, you know, insects will eat some of it, a lot of it probably, but I'll have extras. So I would definitely give it up on buy nothing groups or something like that. Like, hey, I have an extra 12 cucumbers or something. I don't know, but you know, I would give it up on one of those buy nothing groups and just give it away to people.
What else could she do?
Preservation. I could preserve it.
Oh yeah, pickling, yes. Canning, yeah.
Canning, dehydrating. You know, it's funny, I had one of my colleagues over at Goldie, she was sending me these pictures like of her garden and saying, I have such an abundance of all this stuff, it's going to go to waste, right? I'm like, no. Some of it she like were vegetables and things, and then she had this whole thing of nasturtium. I said, bring those bad boys over here. We'll dry them out, dehydrate them, and then you can decide what you want to do with it later. That's medicine food all day long, right? And interestingly enough, Serena, when I came here and I first started growing things, my brain was doing that type of thing as well. Then I was like, hey, wait a minute. Just because I can't eat it now, you know, yeah, I can give some of this away, but, you know, I can store this stuff. You know, your nettle soup, I have a whole bed of intentionally planted nettles that I have planted for food and medicine, right? I dehydrated a whole bunch of nettle last year. You know, my nettle grows and then I cut it all the way back down and let it grow up again. So I always get 2 harvests of it. The soup that I made you has the dehydrated nettle in it from last year. As soon as you put it in moisture, it's back. Right? So, you know, you can all have peppers. I still have peppers growing in the greenhouse. I have more peppers than I need. I grew a bunch of peppers so I could also use them to infuse in honey, but there's no way I'm going to use all those peppers. Right. So I dehydrated.
When we talk about these things, it's the access, right, and having these tools, right, so to have, so the way this would look out, how this would look in the real world would maybe be in community kitchens, right, attaching spaces where you could do these things in, right, on the land, where you can can and preserve it, because it's not about, we know, folks know that they can do this, and they have it, but like, where do they do it? They have, like, they live in a box, like, that's what would be my situation. You really do need space to preserve.
And you can, you know, because there's another level of permaculture, which we're going to start bringing some of that in next year, is getting into the bushcrafting, right? So, you know, what do you do when you don't have the kitchens?
Yeah.
What do you do when you don't have the spaces to preserve and things, right? You know, you can get back into the earthworks and things like that. Right? You can, because we're going to dig out a retaining space under the ground that root vegetables and some of your canned stuff can stay. So, you know, it's like there's levels upon levels upon levels, you know, and I think, you know, when you're in those, the urban space, city spaces, you can use like a combination, because you're going to get into potential contamination things and things like that you have to be mindful of. But you know, there are different things that you can do above and below, using the earth in some way, because you think about it, our ancestors didn't have this stuff, right? And the other thing too is we have to stop being afraid of the bugs. And, you know, I think our social engineering has brought on the clean antiseptic stuff to the point where you don't realize that a lot of this stuff it helps with all the processes in our system. You know, you can go out and look at these videos where they have little kids in the dirt, barefoot, things like that. Their internal systems are Mighty Mouse, right? Because they're not like cleaned and scrubbed with all these different other things injected into them. So there's some kind of mindfulness associated with communing and engaging with nature on a much deeper level as well. So yeah, I mean, there's and I can see like society overall kind of starting to just drill down deeper and deeper and deeper into reverting all the way back, you know, to what we did when we didn't have this stuff, you know, and just being thoughtful about it. And interestingly enough, going back to like Brit's environment, it's interesting how when you revert back to going, you know, utilizing those things that are more earth-based, then you have to deal with the contaminants that were inputted in by the human beings on the back end. You know, so it's almost like these things are coming all at the same time.
My trees are natural.
Yeah.
It's why you want to be also aware of the watershed, you know, because what's coming down the Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
I may not be putting it in the Delaware, but someone's supposed to. Or building hydrogen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
I saw an oil spill yesterday on the on 95 by the Christiana River. And it was not even in the media or anything, but they had done rock and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So like we're dealing with oil spills and stuff. Like that's a really beautiful property, by the way. So much potential. There's so much that you can do.
Like you know something that's really interesting. Think about when things get left untouched, how quickly they can revert back, right? It's our inputs that slow them down. So yeah, you know, you might have a tree that theoretically takes X number of years to grow. But there's nothing here except for the trees that were already here, like the hemlocks and the white pines, which are so brittle, they just break all the time. But all the other trees here are less than 11 years old. Most of them on average are 7 to 8 years old, right? And the land wants to go back to its natural state. It's how much of an input are we putting into it in the process of us trying to allow it to go through that transition. So, you know, of course, you know, some for your ancestral trees, like your hickories and things like that, they will grow fast, right? You have to have the space for them. But it doesn't need to take that 20 years, doesn't need to take that 15 years. Just make sure that that's where you want it, you know, because they are eventually going to get big, and they can be the canopy, but then they're also going to have that heavy root system. So what are you going to put underneath them? But yeah, I mean, it would be really neat if you could just take like a moment in time or blink and let it go and see what it does. Let it go on its own, and then see how rapidly it just starts creating stuff. It's amazing. That's nice. So, okay.
So, good afternoon, everyone. As many of you know, I come from Mali, West Africa, and I have been here for 5 years. I came here in this site, I think for the first time 2 years ago, and that's when Dr. Brown introduced me to permaculture. That was something I had never heard before, and I really loved it because one thing you have to know about Mali is that 70% of our population works in agriculture. However, these principles are not really things that we implement much. So I have thought about it, and I was wondering how I can use this in my dad's site and create my own mango agroforest. And one thing about on that side is that for water, our primary source is rain. So during the rainy season, we try to preserve as much water as we can in big barrels. And we can use this for some months, but unfortunately now, because of global warming, the rainy season is getting shorter. So we have two other sources. One is wells. We use wells, I would say a few months after the rainy season, because during that period they still have, there's still enough water in those wells to for us to use. But then I would say throughout I would say 6 months after the rainy season, then we don't have, the wells might as well get dry, so we have to use drills. Drills, we usually use it for consumption because in Mali, people don't have cars, so many people sometimes have to walk from this one distance to the other, and sometimes it may take hours or days. So we make sure that we use those drills to fill pots that we leave on the street. So if people are walking by, they can just drink water from those sources. And again, and also in the same space, we have some mini baobabs. Baobabs in Mali are known as, we call it the tree of life because of all the benefits it brings. They are very resilient. A baobab can live from 1500 to 2000 years, literally. That's how long they can live. Because of that, they are a very favorable habitat for many animals because they have something that is reliable, and also one thing about them is another thing about baobab is that they can preserve water in the trunk. That's how they can live for a long time. So it is a really good thing for animals as well, and for us humans, because the fruits are called also superfood because they are very rich in nutrition. We use it to make some really good juice, and also we use it for medicinal purposes. And the leaves are also really good for this. They're really good for the soil. They can be used as fertilizer. So I think that my mango gel would benefit a lot from those baobabs. And another thing is that baobabs is also used for it's also a big part of our community because historically in Mali, obviously people didn't have the houses they have now. So baobabs was the best part for people to gather and listen to stories, because another fact about us is that we have many languages in Mali, but none of them has a written form, and that's because we have these people that we call griots. Historically, there were the people that had the role of preserving our history. They would make songs out of our histories, history facts, and then they would go from town to town to tell the stories, and they would usually do it under the baobabs. And and also it is a good spot to eat because for us, because of the shady caves, many people would go under it to eat. And one thing again is that we usually don't eat in different plates. We usually have one big plate, and people would sit in a circle and we would eat together. And it's also a way to invite people in case somebody walking by wants to eat, can just join us. And we don't have to find a way. We don't have to have a part for that person. So I think that keeping those baobabs can be very because of already like the benefit it brings to like animals and the soil, but also to us humans, and I think that I can find a way to still use it as like a place of gathering. And I tend to like the next first step will be to obviously plant those mangoes. I tend to do that. I tend to plant those mangoes maybe 10 meters from each other so that they don't have to compete for resources, and maybe 15 meters from the baobab so that the baobab can benefit them because of, as I said, the benefit it brings to the soil, but also like the wildlife it creates, the wildlife and natural beneficial climate it can create for my mango trees. So yes, I want to plant them 10, 12 meters from each other. And I was also thinking about planting some Lucida, Gloricidia, and pigeon peas. I'm sorry, I have to learn many terms in English because these are terms I know in French, but not much in English. So yeah, these plants have the capacity to change the nitrogen in the atmosphere. They have the capacity to change it to something that plants can benefit from, and they as well bring their own climate that can benefit the soil. They are really good fertilizer, and they also bring about fruits that many beneficial animals can consume. That animals can consume, and to bring fruits that this animal can consume. And the thing is that the pigeon peas also offer fruits. They also offer these peas that us humans as well can consume. Then the next step would be to bring other fruits. I don't know how long it would take because I would have to wait for my mangoes to grow enough to offer some shade to these other plants because they do need filter lights. So I was thinking about ananas, guavas, and the third is coffee. I'm not sure of how that might work out. Maybe it would not work out because honestly I've never heard of somebody growing coffee in Mali. In some nearby country they do it, but I've never seen somebody doing it. So I think that the environment can allow it, but I'm not sure of how that will turn out. And yes, so, and the other thing with guava is that they also attract insects that can benefit my mango trees. And I also, and this plan will be, as I said, I will need my mango to grow enough so that they can get at least half of the shade. So it will be a few meters away from each mango trees. And then I also want to bring some medicinal plants into my habitat. I was thinking of I forgot his name in English. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You say it in your language.
I should not take my phone. Basil. Basil, right? Lemongrass and I forgot the term. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Moringa.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that especially moringa plays a big role in Mali as medicine. We use it for different diseases, and like when I was growing up, my mom, if I was sick, my mom would always give me moringas before ever thinking of any other options. So I was thinking of planting it, and also I think that the lemongrass also has many benefits, and its smell is strong enough to repel mosquitoes and other insects we may not want next to our mango trees. That's it. If anybody has any questions, then I will.
Very good. Very good. We're really breaking it down. Yes, sir.
See, that was excellent. I guess the only question that I had is there's a lot of new plants that you're thinking about growing. What are some of the environmental challenges that the region has that, and how would you circumvent that?
I would say definitely it's just the rainy season getting shorter.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Yes, that's why we have to like figure out so many ways to like get water. Like the fact that we have to like build like drill, because like drills was not something that we used a lot in Mali, because before, in the case where like the rainy season passed, like a few months after, at least we could use wells before the next rainy season. But now we have to rely on drills, and at least it gave us like enough. I would say like as far as like now we didn't have any water issue thanks to those drills. We had like enough water resources.
What other questions you have? That was very good.
Yeah.
And I like how you took these things and applied it to your environment back home where you can really utilize that. And something I might encourage you all to do too is, you know, you often have heard me through this program talk about, you know, that I did a lot of traveling to different places and things. And now, being semi-retired, I want to pick that up again now that I'm more also in its environmental space. And I would encourage you all to there's a lot of opportunities going, like little permaculture excursions to other countries, other places, and be over in those regions and seeing, because most often it's going to be able to bring you back to some of the things we were talking about earlier about, okay, what did our ancestors do? Because in these other countries and things, they're really thinking about things from more baseline. You know, oftentimes they don't have all the technology and conveniences that we have over here in the States, but they're doing things in a much more efficient and ecologically sound manner. So when you have Yango Wycliffe, he's over in Taiwan right now. I think he sent that link over for you guys to join that discussion if you wanted to. But you know, that one that he's attending, that happens every year. You know, so that's an opportunity. There are ones in a lot of other places, but now that you're on the permaculture wheel, there's opportunities to go and do some of this stuff. So I think it's a very good presentation. Very much enjoyed it. Any other questions folks have?
Just a comment, I just really appreciate you teaching us about the boba.
Yeah. I've always
It's so
wanted to.
trendy here in our country, and I feel like we exploit the boba.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's
The
amazing.
lifespan
That's a great one.
Sorry?
The lifespan is amazing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's why there is not much like project to like plant new ones, because as much as like they grow, like they can live that long, it takes them really long time to like bear fruits and like grow up. Like it may take like, I mean not all the time, but it may take a baobab like centuries to get to like to mature totally.
Really? Because that would, give me impetus to then plant it
Yeah.
for the future.
Yeah.
People live here
I
and,
tend to think.
Let's start a boba nonprofit.
yeah.
Bring back bubble.
I mean, the good thing with them is we don't really need to like do like once they like are planted, you don't really need to do much. They can figure everything by themselves. That's how they can live so long.
Nice.
Very nice. Okay. All right, you guys good? You have any more questions? I'm like so impressed with all you guys' presentations.
Okay. All right. Hi, my name is Katrina Midgette. I like that Sidy talked about climate change, because that's literally what led me to the water. As everyone knows, water is life. Without no water, there's no us. So marine permaculture can make a great impact on our fight to stop climate change, coastal line damage, and protect it from major storms, food insecurity, and ocean acidification and dying aquatic life. Marine permaculture can restore the natural upwelling systems, lead a path to sustainable circular economy, rooted in community-led efforts to restore the ocean's ecosystem damaged by climate change. So when you think about circulation, think about the body. If you lose circulation to your limbs, what do you think will happen to it? Anybody?
It will fall.
Right, it dies and falls off. So that's pretty much what's happening to our oceans. So our muscles begin to atrophy and our limbs die. So this way of stewardship is bringing back the circulation into the ocean. So there's a list of definitions that you can look. That's kind of what I'm going to refer to through the presentation. But that is for you to look at leisure. But so when you think of the oceans, you think about the vastness, the depth, and the marine life. It's one solid entity. So what do you think happens to the oceans during climate change? Anybody?
They'll change slowly?
Yeah, anybody else want to? No? Okay. So climate change is happening to the amount of CO2 in our atmosphere, the greenhouse gases. Humans are the driving force behind it. So when there's too much CO2 in the atmosphere, the Earth retains it and it gets warm, it gets hot, like this summer. This summer was probably one of the coolest summers that we'll ever have in our history, or in our lifetime. So our oceans absorb about 90% of that heat. Actually, within the first 500 feet of the ocean is filled with carbon dioxide by human-led activity. So the surface of the heating of the surface water is sinking to the depths of the ocean, and it's stopping natural systems like upwelling. So in the definitions, upwelling, I'll just kind of go back and just kind of so we need upwelling. That is how our oceans circulate the nutrients. So because of the heating, it's stopping that process. So it means that our fish friends are dying and they're being parboiled. So I'm just kidding, I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, so marine permaculture stewardship calls for us to slow down, move like water, and flow with the changes. Observe what we've been doing by listening to our ancestors and learning from the indigenous communities. Fun fact, Bill Mollison was actually inspired by the fish farming in Tanzania, the kelp forest. That's really what was his original inspiration for permaculture design. So by developing marine permaculture to enable regeneration of kelp forests, coral reefs, and those charismatic mega ecosystems that we depend on for our sustenance, so billions of people depend on it. So marine permaculture can, one, restore natural upwelling system with an artificial system, enable kelp forests to return offshore to be able to provide the substrate, the deep water irrigation kelp, deep water irrigation gets the kelp, anyway, the kelp forest back on track and enable them to be nurseries and food for the fish friends. So regenerating the sardines, anchovies, and the entire trophic pyramid that enables life to sustain and grow. This way of stewardship is a regenerative approach for the oceans and the first economic sustainability. We think it will be at the hectare scale with the production of food, products, feed, and fertilizer. That can help land agriculture. So it's like a full circle from the sea to the land and then back to the sea. Bill Mollison's simple approach to regenerative land stewardship inspired Dr. Brian von Herzen to think of ocean regenerative stewardship. We can utilize the substrate for the seaweed to hang on to, and we need deep water irrigation. And an easy way to do this is utilizing wave energy or marine solar energy to provide the energy needed to irrigate the kelp forests. Places like the Philippines have been able to implement these practices and found a lot of success. They've been able to turn around their whole economy while allowing the nature to recover. Dr. Von Hersen said, it's nature that is voting with her fins and saying that this is where it's at. So that's my little spiel. If you go to like the questions, I mean, that's some of the questions that I had when I was doing the research that you might have as well that could answer, but I could just tell you briefly or read the answer, what is marine permaculture? So this machine right here, it's actually two, but I wanted to kind of show like the multi-purpose use of this marine permaculture array. So the marine permaculture arrays are a lightweight lattice structure made of interconnected tubing to which kelp can attach. They can be tethered near land or guide themselves anonymously on open sea. Since they are submerged 25 meters below the sea level, even the largest cargo ships or oil tankers can pass right over them with no damage, save some shredded kelp. About 0.4 square mile units could recreate an entire marine ecosystem akin to the reforesting of a desert.
Awesome.
Another really fun fact about kelp is that it grows really fast. It has the potential to absorb majority of the CO2 faster than the Amazon. I think I had like something in here about that. But so what are the cost benefits? Very abundant if implemented all over the globe. With 1 million NPAs active for about 30 years, the carbon dioxide downdraw could be over 100 gigatons. Currently, the cost is estimated at 5 million per kilometer square. Well, words are hard, but you read it. Okay. But the economy, or the economic return could be over $10 trillion. Restoring fisheries could stock up the protein needed for everyone in the world. And then there's other facts, like my favorite fact was about Hurricane Katrina. So everyone knows about Hurricane Katrina. That was a Category 5, and that cost the U.S. $105.7 billion. And in 2015, we had just about 22 Category 5s. Yeah, that's bad for our coastline, that's bad for our kelp, that's bad for everybody. So the implementing these marine permaculture arrays could prevent that from happening, and that's what happened with Philippines. They were able to lessen the effects of the hurricanes, which protected their coral reef. It protected the other aquatic life that's closer to the coast. I always make kelp grow again. Let's put it on our hats. But yes, so kelp is just one of the biggest ways that we can, like the immediate ways to solve the cooling down of the planet. We must create the environment for the phytoplankton and the bivalves, so that the bivalves can help the water quality, and then we can also utilize vertical farming. So here in this photo, you see like the kelp. So the kelp can grow freely on these buoys, I guess you would I would say, yeah. You can have fish traps that are also attached to it. There's also water mussels. And then you can also have like small scale dynamic deployments to harvest this and also harvest the fish that you're keeping in that pen. This pen will also help give more nutrients for the kelp. So this right here, I didn't get to explain it really well, but pretty much it's always in the deep end of the water. So it sucks up the deep, cool nutrient water, and then it comes all the way up, and then it distributes it at the top, so all the fish friends can eat it, and kelp can eat it, and they're all happy. This is a diffuser pipe to kind of keep the temperature cool or warm or optimal for kelp. And then these little white, yellow things are kind of like probes to kind of I guess you can use it for, I mean, I just made a guess, but like you can take data from the water and see how the temperature is, like how much light it's getting. This is also has a satellite link attached to it, so it can free float and we can track it all over the ocean and see how far it's going. And it will contribute to a zero waste economy by the production and the consumption and the recycling, and then we try to repurpose and repair as much as possible. And then there's fair share marketplace. Like I said, you can create biofuels, you can create medicine, bioplastic fertilizers, biochar, biofabrics now. Yeah, now that was really cool. Last week I saw like there's like an actual line of clothes that they grind down bivalve or like oyster shells and then mix it with plastic, but I'm pretty sure it's like reusable, biodegradable plastic, and then that's how they use it to make like fabrics and clothes. So there's so much potential to use the kelp to help not only cool down the planet, but also feed us and clothe us and help us grow more food. And yay, everyone's happy. Any questions, any more comments?
Good job.
I have two things to say. One is I love your excellent presentation, excellent topic, and I love that you brought seaweed salad to accompany the topic.
Yeah.
And I don't notice, but on my social media, I follow DENREC and a whole bunch of marine organizations, and there's been a lot of volunteer opportunities to work with the oyster farms in the Chesapeake and the Delaware and Ocean. So I don't know if you've seen them, or I can always forward them on to you if they, are of interest to you.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yes, I did. Yes, but thank you. If you want to send me more information, I got an email about it, but I didn't look at it because I'm bad at that. But yeah, if you want to,
I think you should pass that around because it's so funny. Yeah,
you can pass this around, get a good look at it.
Good job with the presentation and aligning your themes with everything right down to the food situation. But I like the regeneration associated with this model, right?
Oh yes, it's completely hands-on.
And I like the idea that it addresses all these things, all the food, the environment, everything.
And taught us a new subject. I mean, not really, but we didn't really, this was one that you had to delve into on your own to do this.
Yeah. This is Andrew Millison's fault.
And
got that on tape. Andrew Millison, he said, I gave you enough stuff to do. And I was like, what? You can do that with the ponds? What else can you do? What else can ponds do? And then I was like, oh my God, they trap this? They also trap CO2. What's going on? Marine permaculture. I'm like, oh, whoa, there's a whole field for marine. And then I was just like, rabbit hole. Yeah. So it was really, really fun. It's probably one of my favorite projects I ever did, so I'm really excited.
Just use this and go around and teach kids. Just use this.
Yeah. You know what? You might have an opportunity to go into Brit's program and teach these kids some of this stuff.
Oh, yeah, I would love that, the kids. Yeah. You kids. Yeah.
For the upwelling, is there a pump or is it just like?
Oh, so yeah, it's a valve. It's a valve pump that just sucks all that stuff up, and then it just shoots it up to the top. I did not think, none of that is my idea. That is this dude, Von Hersten, Dr. Brian Von Hersten. He's with climatefoundation.org. That's he's like the #1 person that's been talking about this, so. Yeah.
But you number one problem that is understand. Yeah, right. That's only the activities. That's why we haven't been. The technology now is hard to get on.
Did you get it on?
Right now, so now the technology we use, you're Because right, if you're farming under, you have to.
I've actually seen people do farming
They
underneath
dive.
the water, but they dive and it's like there's a rat
Tanks and stuff.
like tanks and stuff, and I've seen that, but like, yeah.
Why don't we talk about all that space under there?
Yeah. Water is important. I see it. I'm so passionate.
What are you doing attacking me with that thing? Messing me up here. I'm trying to.
She was sniffing it earlier. She's like, what's in there?
Trying to have a little sleep on.
I know. I was told specifically to put fish on her. I was like, I'm so tired. I want to put fish. All right, fine.
Serena knows that we were on there in the boat.
Yeah.
Cohort 6.
Cohort 6 on the boat.
Yeah.
Filter.
You should take a look at on the web.
Yeah, Gabby and I just got total close-ups on camp and on here.
Okay, because I want to show it.
Yeah, there's going to be a serious Miss Cinematographer and taking my little.
Are you gonna take it though? I mean, I'm okay if you take it.
You know what? I was collecting all the PDC's projects, and
It might be too.
I got it though. I have.
Such good segues into embodying it and applying it to what we're doing now. So I work at a mental health facility, acute care. So we have detox patients, we have children, we have people over the age of 55 on our geriatric unit. And so obviously one of the things I even said initially was trying to narrow the project down and realizing that I have 70,000 projects in my head that I need to do later now. So there's lots going on, and I went with the easiest route for Sarah because I knew that I was learning a lot and I had to figure out kind of a way to apply it to what I was doing. And so I went from 10 years in human resources, master's degree in human resources, completely changed careers, and now I'm officially teaching yoga and will start a horticulture therapy program at this facility coming soon. So very excited, right place, right time kind of situation. And the right boss, let's be honest. She was like, this makes you happy, doesn't it? I was like, how do you tell? That being all said, embodying the PDC and trying to apply it, yoga and horticultural programs in acute mental health and detoxification. Why? Why would Sarah or anybody want to do this? I am also a certified yoga instructor and now certified Reiki healer. So in 2013 or so, I was forced to do yoga. I said, this is bullshit. You're all crazy. This is woo-woo. And then I realized, oh, I only reacted that way due to trauma. That's cool. And I realized that one of the reasons that we see so much abuse and violence and disconnection in our world is because of the lack of connections within ourselves. Yeah. And it took about 10 years trying to reconnect to my own body, reconnecting to the earth and other human beings, and put myself in a position where I can operate in service to those who need it most. So luckily I was able to get a job at a mental hospital with all my friends. We're a 130-bed facility, and we have a range of mental health issues from complete hallucinations, delusions, schizophrenia, all the way down to I'm depressed and I'm myself or somebody else. We have voluntary admits, we have involuntary admits, we have people brought in from cops, we have people who walk themselves into the building. And all of these people need care. And what I did was apply the 12 steps of permaculture to the facility. So again, pretend like you can't read. That's going to be the map just so that you can see the greenery. That's one building. We have two buildings. The second building, all of the green is completely unused and completely untouched. The entire property line is surrounded by trees, and that gives a pretty good canopy to rush through it because it says the words on there. I don't want that to be on the internet. So what I did was found another website and have amazing little icons that I just stole. So it goes through the 12 steps: observe and interact with, pay attention. So it started in February, and I wrote this around August or so, 7 months. There was flooding, there's significant amount of unused property. There was a previous horticulture therapy program there, so it is possible. And patient safety was a big thing that I was running into. State regulations, food regulations for the cafeteria, etc., and training and education for the employees. The cache and store energy and harvest while it's abundant, using resources. Having a scarcity mindset isn't necessarily what normally goes hand in hand with hospitals. And so we've got to kind of work on that a little bit. And the harvesting, not just including food, talking about like medical supplies and that bringing that kind of mentality to the entire hospital, from how they utilize the kitchen and the cafeteria, to how they utilize art supplies, to how they even utilize the few social workers that are there. Which, by the way, Cecilia Rich is the social worker there now, so I work with her all the time, and I have a feeling she's going to be on board. So I do have help. I have a feeling she's going to be about it. So that's good. I like way to show what community is here, whether we realize it or not, whether we're paying attention or not. So clickety. Obtaining yield, make sure you're getting valuable results. And I took that to patient complaints. What does that mean when they give you feedback? And so how can we implement changes in everyday patient care where we get valuable results? We see less patients coming back. We see people getting mental health needs that they actually need, the detoxification needs that they need. That really plays a lot into ethics and working ourselves out of a job. If you're a social worker, if you're a healer, if you're a doctor, you want to work yourself out of a job in some capacity. You're not here to develop a codependent relationship with patients. And resource allotment, and I'm going to continue to say patient safety because it's a mental health hospital, and when we're talking about things like horticulture, that was a really, really big thing. Same with training and education. Self-regulation, accepting feedback, be opening to modifying dysfunctional behaviors. It goes right into mental health, be the beacon. We have to have an example of what we're supposed to be doing. Whether we're talking about the canopy ladders and the bushes, or whether we're talking about not being abusive and using trauma-informed language and using harm reduction tactics, we need to see an example and know what's not working. Use value renewables, reduce dependency on scarce resources. Same with staffing in organizations. There's less doctors, there's less nurses, there's less social workers. So what can we do to reduce the dependency on the scarcest resources? And a lot of it is, again, education. When common knowledge is things along the lines of trauma-informed language and harm reduction, you're going to have a completely therapeutic environment rather than having people tell patients to shut the fuck up. Because I've seen that. So, like, I didn't just do this because I was bored. There are significant improvements across the board in all hospitals, especially mental health and acute facilities, and it translates into prisons. So if you understand anything about the school to prison pipeline and the way that the United States has set up the entire prison industry, if you cared, recidivism would be the #1 priority. We don't want people to come back. After everything that I've seen, I think that therapeutic environment in the prison system would do well. Producing no waste, that has been one of my biggest nightmares. Like walking into a hospital setting, especially in a safety setting, because you can't have reusable trays. They have styrofoam, but you could have compostable things. So things along those lines, compostable utensils, they're the same kind of situation. Designing from patterns to details, and observing natural and social patterns, employee-patient population, are quite similar. You don't go into the helping profession normally unless you have a reason and some sort of background to drive you there. Same as if you're not aware or if you don't know things, you just simply can't see or hear them. And again, education and training. Either you know better and you don't care, or you just don't know. It's one or the other. And it's usually, I'm going to give you the grace of going, you just don't know. So we want to train and educate everybody. Integrate and capitalize on how to make things work together, people, places, and things. down from somebody trying to get sober and move those people, places, and things. Like, we're all living in Delaware. We've probably spent a good enough time here to know how compact and how, if there's only 6 degrees of separation between us and all the 8 billion people across the globe, Delaware is very small, so getting sober and staying mentally well can be quite a challenge in this state. And also, 95 goes all the way to Maine and all the way to Florida. And sex trafficking and drug use are just rampant up and down because of the easy sex and accessibility of it. So it makes it a lot harder. Using small, slow solutions, local resources, and responsibles to manage scale. It's gold capitalism to have the hospital at max capacity at all times, right? It's not really the mentality we want. We want actually all mental health hospitals empty because people are so well that they no longer need them. However, that the reality is that we know there are people out there on the streets who are still not getting the help that they need. So use and value diversity, training and education. If you want to use and value diversity, people have to understand what that means. And when they look at their coworker, they have to understand what that means. And that's what I've realized a lot of people don't, especially in this kind of setting, and significantly more so in the prison setting, which I worked in a prison, that's why I keep bringing that up as well. Use edges and value the marginal, as much diversity as possible. And when I hear the word intersections, I don't think just the forest line and the field. I think the intersection of being Native and Hawaiian and in Delaware and a yoga teacher and whatever your intersections are, as a mother, as a father, as an uncle, as a role in your community, whatever that is, every one of us has that. You have an identity, you have these stories, and these experiences that no one else has, and we absolutely need every single one of us. Creatively use and respond to change. Again, flooding. There's nothing happening in the grounds, that's just kind of all getting mowed. There's pretty standard ways that they try and use hospital situations, but I would love to, well, this is actually my role. The job that I'm doing is one of the first ways that they're trying to be creative and use and respond to change. We call it alternative healing methods, but yoga, through Reiki, we use aromatherapy, I use sound healing, and all of that for the patients. And I have had more patients in this setting sit still for longer and participate for longer than I do public settings with classes that are accessible to outside. So it's been pretty amazing. And then as you can see, it's the 12 steps, and right in the center, Earth Care, people, fair, share. That website just had the best little icons, so I stole them all. You saw that one too. You can click on every single little one and you're like, save. That one's mine now. But that's pretty much it. First there.
Yeah.
Very grateful. Very, very grateful. I basically have the opportunity to use this in a clinical setting. So, any questions?
Very powerful presentation, and again, I think, you know, what each of you are showing is how not just like the candy cutter definition, but how you're actually applying, how you would actually apply them and how you are applying them in your environment, and that's what this is all about. This is like from a practical standpoint, right? And that's why we sit the book over here, right? And you always have this book, and I'm going to go through it because if anybody asks whether or not you went through the book for your certification, right? But really, this is the meat and the potatoes of it. What you guys are doing here right now, this is like the capstone. This is, yeah, I got this, right? This is what I got this. I know what this is all about. But yeah, that was really, and that horticulture therapy space is blowing up big time. I was so happy when you told me that you were going to go into that space, because that's a perfect alignment of
It really is.
your gifts and,
Right.
you know, this part, and really being able to go into an environment where it's going to make a significant difference.
Yeah, talk about like those planets aligning. I'm just grateful every single day. I like to be able to move, to be able to have everybody sign. The CEO was like, yoga and Reiki, yes please. Like that doesn't always happen.
Right.
And so I'm just extremely grateful that this worked out the way that it did. And my biggest concern is, okay, we gotta make sure that the patients don't pee in the garden, but we're gonna be okay.
Right.
We're gonna make sure that everybody is supervised and nobody, like, you know, but yeah, that's.
I think once they see it and they
theoretically, but I mean, we have very mentally unwell people.
Yes.
So there is always, like, that's the reality of it. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how it goes. But even just being able to get the patients outside more often has been an absolute gift, and I'm just grateful.
Yeah, you know, it's those, you know, I get a lot of, my clients on the healing side go from people who have cancer. I have had three clients that came to me, their cancer was roaring and fully blown, and all three of them, it's been dormant for a long period of time. Now, folks have to be receiving on the other end. I've had folks bring their autistic children here. They have had other emotionally unstable things. That garden is a healing space for them to ground and connect right away, right? There's energy coming from the space. I have the kids lay on the ground and they don't want to get up, you know, because they can feel it, right? And so oftentimes, especially with these children who are deemed to have like these emotional challenges, or they're not learning in a certain way, they're just being overstimulated by everything that's coming at them because they're so sensitive and they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to filter it. They don't have any mechanisms that they can use to help with the incoming, right? So, you know, we've got to get out of these standard colonized approaches around, okay, someone has this is the way you need to deal with them, right? And utilize the things that are more available to us, which is right out there, right? But they don't want, for, you know, you guys all know that whole story. We don't need to talk about that. But, you know, that's the reality. And this is where we all come into play, right? We become a bridge to that and all the different things that we're doing, which is wonderful.
This is actually the property that I live on right now. It is on Brackenville Road in Hockessin. If you don't know, Brackenville Road goes through a valley, and on the other side of the property here is, it's called Skyline Orchard Drive, so there's a lot of water flowing this way and down through the hills, so this property is flooded all the time. Currently, it's all AstroTurf grass, which I absolutely hate. And I just thought, like, if I lived here, what would I want to do with this space? So I created this food forest with polycultures, there's keyholes, there's so many different plants in here. And I split it up here by the different roles that they perform. So there's accumulators, there's comfrey, borage, and chicory root. Tractors or pollination, nitrogen fixers, mulchers, repellers, garlic, onion, marigold to keep some of the wildlife at bay for the sensitive plants. And then we've got lots of fruit trees, fruit shrubs, and so we'll start down here at the bottom. Also, I'll just mention here, so the top of the property, this is north, this is east, this is a brick pathway, driveway, and this is the garage. The south and west faces that side. So down here, closest to the house, this is the annual garden. So we've got all of the annual plants, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, chard lettuce. It's a very big property. I mean, at the bottom, this is 105 feet from end to end. At the top is 85, and then 73 and 80 feet feet. So, and originally, I was not sure how many plants was going to be able to fit here, but there is honestly so much I could fit in the space that I could live off of this and probably not need to buy groceries much. So I was very surprised to see all that.
What's the total acreage?
The total acreage of the property, it's like between 1/10 and 0.2 acres.
Okay.
Just for this space. So back to the annual beds, we've got different roles here. So alfalfa, that's fixing nitrogen as well as using for mulch. We've got lots of different root vegetables, so potatoes, carrots, beets, all scattered throughout. We've got kale, buckwheat again, and then for nitrogen fixing, we've got lentils, peanuts, fava beans, soybeans, and they're all working harmoniously together either to suppress the weeds. And I should mention too that it's going to be a clover ground covers all throughout here. And that's it for the annual side. One thing I'll mention too is just the shape of the pathways. This took place because there is a drainage. It's like a little dam sort of thing to drain the water from the top of the property down, and there is like a little river rock bed here and a creek that flows. So it's a very beautiful property, and what I needed to do was drain more water through it so it's not like stagnating, and so that's why I have these like channels of water kind of cut out instead of just one, the way it is now, just 3 going out into the creek. Because fruit trees especially have a lot of fungal issues, and so that is why the pathways, I basically started with the water drainage, and then the pathways just kind of revealed themselves. So that was super helpful as a starting point. And at the top of the annual bed, we've got some brambles, so raspberries, blackberries with a strawberry ground cover, and these will arch into the driveway. So there's like a 2-foot space between where all of this land is and the driveway. So I try to use the principle of like marginal spaces, and these could actually grow like over and make use of that 2 feet of space and create more berries for eating. Something else you'll see here is milkweed scattered throughout in these little beds. I really want this to be like a butterfly factory as well as a food forest, so I love butterflies. And we've got milkweed here. This part, so going down here, this mini entrance is really special. If you go down, it's actually like a Four Sisters garden. So there's corn, sunflower, and then there's squash and beans. So I added sunflower here just to add a little bit of variation for height. So there's corn, sunflower stacked. So you'll walk through, and that's on both sides. So it's kind of like you're walking through this little alley of corn and sunflower with squash and beans growing up in both of them for more food. And this would be like a great place for walking meditation as well. And then going all the way to the bottom here, this is where the Three Sisters Garden continues and goes all the way up this side as well. So it's like 3 rows up at Three Sisters Garden. Down at the bottom, we've got an elderberry polyculture. We've got some dill, fennel, flax, comfrey, squash, milkweed again. And then down here at the bottom, we've got 2 fruit trees, nectarine and pear, with chickpeas and borage. One thing I tried to do was to put the accumulation plants and the nitrogen fixers next to each other and in between the fruit trees, so the roots of the trees really get the benefit of both of those things. And also just on multiple sides, we've got the accumulators like comfrey and nitrogen fixers all throughout the clover. Also, going up here a little bit, we've got a cherry tree with tomato and basil and lupines. And one thing too here, as you'll see, there is rice growing through the central channel of this main pathway, and that's placed where the water is going to flow to the main part. So the rice here is going to basically accumulate where the water is, and so making use of that extra water with the water-loving plant I tried to really take advantage of this unique piece of land since it's always so wet. And I thought rice would be a cool experiment. And then following that all the way at the bottom, we've got a strawberry bed. This is like a little rain garden. We've got sweetgrass, hydrangea, some red dogwoods, lime bark, and some pollinators. Above that, we have an apple tree, a plum tree, a crab apple tree with chamomile, fennel dill, oregano, and marsh marigold. I really love this one. It's beautiful. It blooms around the same time as a lot of these other fruit trees to attract those pollinators when they're in bloom, really need the services. And it's a native marigold, so I'll come back every year. I've also got some asparagus, chickpeas, lentils. Going down this way, we've got another apple tree and a few pawpaw trees, along with some more milkweed, pecan tree, a persimmon, another pecan, a red bud, a mountain laurel, some oats, and on this side, we've got some more milkweed beds, decoy crab apple tree. That was something that was in one of the videos we watched, where deer, there's always a lot of deer on this property, so this will hopefully feed the deer and any animals so they don't really eat the peach trees.
They love peaches.
Let's see, we've got a few keystone species in this garden, like the blueberries, a black willow all the way at the top here to absorb excess water.
Yes.
So this is right on the road here, and I wanted to create a buffer. So actually on all three sides of this food forest, there's like a 5-foot buffer for wildlife. So at the top, this is where there's a black willow in the middle with some sumac, 3 sumacs, 2 hollies, 3 St. John's wort, medicinal plants. The pollinators love it. We've got some clethra and liatris there, and then along the road is this plant called Chesmanthium latifolium, or the sea oats. It's like this really beautiful upright grass, and it's good at buffering the wind, so any butterflies that come here will be protected at this lower level. And all of these plants are salt tolerant, so when you do spread salt on the roads, these will hold up fine. Yeah. And then along the west side animal buffer zone, we've got some arrowwood viburnum, that's another keystone species, winterberries, those are for migrating birds, red dogwoods, hydrangea, and from that side at the bottom, more red dogwoods. I absolutely love them. They're so beautiful, can't have enough. Viburnum trilobum, or the high bush cranberry, that's another keystone species, very high fat content for migrating birds. And probably my favorite part of this is all the way at the bottom is this just long row of asters and goldenrod, from like start to finish. Really great benefit to pollinators this time of year. We've got a magnolia tree at the top. And then over here we've got an apple tree, lentils, alfalfa, rosemary, daffodils, daylilies. Those are all companion plants for the apple tree. And asters and goldenrod kind of spread throughout as well. This is a kind of another wildlife area. So we've got buttonbush for the pollinators, and sunflowers, bee balm, some sedges for hosting insects. We've got an almond tree with a gummy berry, baptisia, lentils, fava beans, and chickpeas. Since I eat vegan, I was really surprised to see like how much protein I could grow in a space like this. To be able to do that while giving nitrogen to these fruit trees and back to the soil, and also to sustain myself it was very inspiring. I remember when I first started the PDC, I was kind of in this fear state of what's going to happen when all the grocery stores don't have food anymore, and the food systems collapse. And when I see this, I see so much hope that like we can really survive off of the places that we design, especially when they're so intensely compounded like this.
Yeah.
And then so much pollinator support here as well. Probably my second favorite part of this, there's just a row of spicy peppers. So we've got like 12 different spicy peppers there with some comfrey and clover to help add extra nutrients. Right next to this peach tree is a watermelon, buckwheat for mulching, navy beans, alfalfa, another dogwood, and some radishes. Like there's some root vegetables throughout these to provide that deep aeration of the soil as well, and to provide calories during the cold season when most of these other plants are not going because they're too cold. That's basically the gist of it. I don't want to like name every single plant on here, but each role is defined. That there's a lot of marigold and onion kind of surrounding the different high-value trees. One thing too I should mention is that down here at the rain garden area, there's this plant called quinine is incredible at attracting the beneficial wasps. So things that will bore into like peach trees and apple trees, these wasps will do a good job of defending that. So I've learned so much in this process, just like all about the interrelationships between the plants and the insects and which ones work well next to each other and which ones don't. I really wanted to put the pecan tree next to the apple tree, but they don't really like each other that much. Like they'll decrease the yield if you put them right next to each other. So and along just the last thing I'll say is that since there are so many plants here, like this will take many years to develop, and of course they're going to spread, and so there will be so much that can be given back to the communities for free, just year after year from a system like this. I think that's it. Do you guys have any questions, comments?
I like the care with which it sounds like you've paid attention to the different layers of the canopy. You have the high layer, you've got the other lower layer.